morning. Welcome to Taffs Well. I need to get that right because I've been told off I keep saying Taffs Wells, but there's only one well on the River Taff. It's up there, it's kind of a mineral thing. And Taffs Well is kind of like a gorge. So I turn around behind me, you can see the mountainside, quite a narrow gorge. And back in the 1800s, when these railway companies were building their lines, they needed to get through this gorge. Now below me is the current Pontypridd Valleys line, in the process of being converted to metro, and that was the Taff Valley Railway. If you look over there, you can see the A470, which is a big dual carriageway, and that is built on the site of the Cardiff Railway. Up there, and I'm going to, behind me, up there was a massive great big viaduct called a walnut tree viaduct, which I featured in the previous video, and that was the Barry Railway. What I'm going to look at today is railway number 4. Now if we switch up to a picture taken from Walnut Tree Viaduct, you can see the Taff Valley, you can see over on the far side the Cardiff Railway and the canal, which has been covered over by the A470. And you can see another railway snaking down the side of the hillside and joining up with the Taff Valley just by the station. And that is railway number 4, the Rhymney Railway. And that's the one I'm going to walk up today. It's now converted to a footpath and I'm going to go for a stroll. By the way, if you're wondering what all the noise is and what all this is behind me, this is the metro. This is the metro depot, which is being built by Transport for Wales for their tram trains, and it's going to join up with the Taff Valley Railway just down here, ironically roughly where Walnut Tree Junction actually was. Now I'm going to shut up now because there's a train coming into Taffs Wells station and it's going to drown me out even if the drilling already hasn't. So let's go for a wander. So where does this line go? Well, the Rhymney line and the Rhymney Valley is up over the hill past Caerphilly. And if you look on the map, you can see this orange line here snakes round this side of the hill, climbs, and my goodness, it climbs, and ends up in Caerphilly, where it links up. And this was the original link which allowed the Rhymney Valley trains to get down into Cardiff and enter down into the docks. What we're going to see on the way is some, well, fairly modern infrastructure, because things changed, but also some of the original bridges that were built over this line. Now, this particular bit of line had a name, and it was called the Big Hill. I just want to place it on record. I really don't like walking up hills, but for this one, I'll make a bit of an exception. So the first bridge that we come to basically goes over this A470 dual carriageway, and it was built in the 1960s, late 60s, early 70s, and replaced a previous bridge that was here, which went over the Glamorgan Canal. And the Glamorgan Canal was completely decimated to build this dual carriageway. So it's a 70s bridge rather than a more modern bridge, shall we say. And it's when we start getting past this, we start hitting some of the original structures. Interestingly, actually looking at this might actually be some remnants of the old canal bridge here. I need to do a bit of research and ask on the disused group. Gosh, this road's noisy! You can still hear the dual carriageway behind me, and I think we will do for quite some time as we wander up this hill. And it's really difficult to see when you're filming something to give a sense of what the gradient is actually like. But it is, there is quite a gradient for a railway, remember. There is quite a bit of a climb and a bit of a steepness to it. So this bridge up ahead was over the Cardiff Railway. The Cardiff Railway I featured in an earlier video. This was one where they opened it but couldn't actually get access to the Taff Valley Railway up in Pontypridd, and so just ran passenger services and served a local colliery just up the line from here. And it basically was open until such time as somebody at grouping said, well, why don't we just now link that line to to the Taff Valley, which they did with a junction just north of Taffs Wells, and this whole bit of line came completely disused. There's very little of it left. As we come up here a bit further, there are houses. There's a small bridge that goes over a minor road, and there are some houses which are on the line which would have been part of the railway infrastructure. So I have to be a little bit careful as to what I film as I come along here. I don't want to intrude on anybody, but the one thing I have been looking for that I was told was here, and is here, is look at this. Yes, there is still a signal up on this line. Because of where it is, it's actually very difficult to film it, but you can see the signal there. What's interesting is I don't think I'm the first person and won't be the last person to try and get photos of it. And so there is a definite dip in the hedge here where people have been walking in to try and get something up there. But this is in somebody's garden, so we're not going to intrude too much. You can see some sort of electrics here that looks like a telegraph pole with some sort of telecoms electrics underneath it. So the Rhymney was quite happily running freight down, joining up the Taff Well, getting it down to Cardiff, but at the same time picking stuff up along the way. And round about here there would have been a junction with a branch that went up and joined up with a colliery, and there was collieries with ropeways, industrial tramways, all sorts of things, loading up the wagons, and then link up here in order to get themselves down into the docks or raw material for the ironworks up in the valleys. Hard to believe, looking at these woods now, that there was actually any such thing up there, but time is a healer, as they say. Going up now the kind of like the Nantgarrow incline. We've sort of left the A470 behind. It's now behind us. It's a lot quieter, and it's interesting. On the one hand, there's not a lot left of this line. There's not a lot of features, the odd bridge. But as you look around, now and again, I'll come across a wall or a bit of brickwork. Nothing major, but enough to say, yeah, there's still some ghosts here. My case in point, some slab work here, which could be, there's a load of gas pipeline signs all over the place, but it could have been foundations for a signal box or plate layer's hut. I know there was a coaling stage at some point, which is along this line, which I'm looking out for. Might have been that demolished down, but as I say, all sorts of echoes. So interesting to see on this particular bridge here, some work going on to, I'm assuming, repoint, preserve the bridge. This is where the Taff Trail crosses over. And you can see that's a rather lovely, very clean, very well maintained bridge. So I hear you cry. They're doing very well with freight. They're shifting a load of coal and iron. Well, what about the people? Well, the month after it opened in, what was it, March 1858, they started up passenger services, 2 trains a day to do 24 miles from Rhymney down to Cardiff, taking an hour and a half, 90 minutes. So it wasn't exactly the speediest of services. They had stations at Penrhos, Tip Hill, Bargoed, Ustrad, Llanbradach, and then Caerphilly. In those days, Caerphilly station was a lot further north of the town, and then it veered around and down this line, Taffs Wells, non-stop from there down into Cardiff. And as you wander up here, you start thinking, well, you know, there's track bed, footpath stretching off as far as the eye can see. What else could be round here? Well, up there, believe it or not, is the track bed of the Cardiff Railway, and over there, behind that cutting, is the track bed of a line called the Alexander Dock Junction Railway. Had a former name, but that's what it ended up with. That one I'm definitely going to be exploring in a later video, because they used ex-Barnum and Bailey circus carriages to carry their passengers. It's quiet here now, but believe it or not, there were exchange sidings up there for the Barry Railway, and just around about the turn of the World War II, full of American locomotives ready to go out for D-Day. So with trains going up there, trains coming down here, trains heading down the Alexander Dock towards Pontypridd, this would have been quite a busy, noisy part of the world. This is what I mean about ghosts. There's something up there. Zoom in a bit. Looks like it could have been some building, but well overgrown. And with that grassy embankment, I ain't going to go up and have a look. Again, I'll have a word with the guys in the disused railway group and see if anybody knows. Getting towards the top, this has been a climb all the way. Only a gentle gradient, but right here, this is the remains of, or so I'm told, a coaling bunker. Remembering this gradient, it's so difficult to see when you're actually filming. You know, this is quite a slope for a railway, and the trains would have been hammering up here, locomotives hammering up here, probably struggling to get up here with even with empty loads. And so this is a bunker with spare coal in to restock as they're coming up. And so here we are on the left, the Alexander Dock Junction Railway in the trees. On the right, the Walnut Tree Viaduct Barry line comes down and joins us, and dead ahead of us is, well, Penrhos Viaduct. Back here, once again, the ruins and the remains, kept in very good condition because obviously they're on this cycle path, but with their own stories to tell. The Rhymney line became a very successful railway, but in the early days it certainly had its moments. This is the Rhymney Railway by D.S. Barry, the Oakwood Press book, and this is an amazing quote about these early days. The Rhymney, with its shortage of engine power, specialised in enormously long coal trains, 130 to 140 wagons, which sometimes descended the Nantgarrow incline, or this bit we've just been climbing up, in the manner of a 1,000-ton toboggan, to charge pell-mell onto Walnut Tree Junction with whistles screaming, loose coal flying, and smoke and sparks whirling from tortured brake blocks. That would have been a heck of a sight. Later on there were instructions given to the brake people, the brakemen, that they had to make sure everything was pinned down before they went down the incline, and more to the point, if any of the brake blocks were on fire, they would put them out before they proceeded down the Taff Valley. Common sense, possibly. So what happened? Well, the Rhymney Railway kind of fell out a bit with the Taff Valley Railway and decided it was time to build their own line. Things were getting delayed, passenger trains were being held at Walnut Tree Junction, things weren't too good. So they built a line south of Caerphilly through Cevenon Tunnel, Llanishen and down into Cardiff, and opened that in 1871. The Big Hill continued for freight for a while, but traffic slowed and stilled, and it was June 1982 that finally it closed to freight traffic. There was a rail tour in October 82, but after that it was all closed and all demolished and pulled up. So I hope you've enjoyed this walk up the Big Hill, and it really is a hill. It's an incline all the way from Taffs Wells up here to Penrhos Junction. Looking at some of the bits that are left, looking at some of the relics that we can find, and exploring and explaining a little bit about the history of the Rhymney Railway and the part it played on this particular line. I will be back at some point to do a video about the Alexander Dock Junction Railway, but in the meantime, from Penrhos, cutting Penrhos Junction, thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, comment, share, let your folks know I'm here. I do this just for fun. I'm not making any money out of it. And in the meantime, I'll see you again soon. Bye.